Hi, I'm Gary and welcome to my shop. In this video I'm going to show you how to make these Slimline Pro Pen and Pencil sets. And also for the show and displays I got this nice gift box to display these in. This folds up and very nice gift box to go with it. Now in this video I'm going to show you a few techniques that are different. There are other videos out here on YouTube to show how to make these Slimline Pro pens, and I think a lot of them make different modifications to it, but I'm going to be doing it as the stock method by which PSI instructions follow. Now the Slimline Pro pen and pencil kits come in both a 24 karat gold and also in chrome, and they come in these packages like these, and the parts are in there individually wrapped for protection for during shipping. The instructions for these kits, whether it's the gold or the chrome, are exactly the same. The instructions make reference to the 24 karat gold, but it's the same exact instructions for the chrome kits also. Now these instructions are two-sided. It shows you all the parts that are there and kind of the order of assembly, and then on the back side gives you the turning instructions and what bushings body blanks you'll need for this. Now I'm going to be making these pens and pencil kits as gift sets for some upcoming craft shows that I have. My first step is to trim my blanks I'm going to use for making these kits to match the length of the brass tubes. Now the thing is that with these tubes for both the pen kit and the pencil kit, the brass tubes are all the same size and same length. So that's a good thing. So what I'll do is mark these up here to cut to the lengths of the tubes or slightly more, so I allow some for doing some barrel trimming before I go to the lathe. In this video demonstration I'm going to be making the gold pen and pencil kits. Now one thing I'm going to do here is for when I go to my lathe, so I can make sure I get these wood grains lined up with each other correctly. I'm going to make this marker here. So these are the parts that I want to put together when I assemble this on the lathe, so the wood grains will match up well. Next, I'm going to trim these off, and since these should line up pretty good with each other, I'm just going to kind of gang cut them, as we call it. Cut two pieces at once. As you can see there, my brass tubes will line up with these as size. Now all I'll do is center punch these with the squid that I use, and then I can drill the holes, which is an 8mm drill bit for these. To demonstrate how I mark center on a workpiece that I want to mark center for drilling, I use my blocks squid, and I just try and get this kind of balanced and centered there. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And just give it a light tap on top with the hammer, and I got a perfectly centered hole. As I'm getting ready to go to the drill press here to drill the hole through my blanks, you have to consider the type of material that you're using for your bodies. In this case I'm using wood, so the best bit for that is going to be what we call a brad point bit. That's got a pointed tip and some flats on it. It's almost like a Forstner bit. Now if you're going to use an acrylic like this, which is a plastic, you'd want to use an acrylic bit which has a much sharper angle on the bit. So this cuts through the acrylics a lot better, and when you get through the ends and stuff it stays cooler, it cuts faster, and when you get through the end it doesn't blow it out and ruin your piece on you. If you were to use the brad point bit on the acrylic, you're going to wind up with bad results. So definitely want to use the acrylic bit for acrylics, brad point bit for the woods. Okay, so here I've got my workpiece mounted into my vertical drilling jig here. This is from Rockler. Did a video on this too, and then this jig that I built to fit onto my drill press table here so I can get things lined up good. Also makes it very convenient, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. Anyways, I've got my 8mm brad point drill bit chucked up in here, and I'll drill the hole through this piece and then the other three pieces also. You don't want to try and force your way through this too fast. This bit gets pretty hot. Careful when you're touching it so you don't burn yourself. You have to stop on occasion, give the bit some time to cool off, then come back and proceed. It takes about 3 minutes for this bit to cool down. Okay, this bit is cooled down. Now to finish drilling this through. that's through. That's all the way through, a little bit off center, but that's okay because I've got plenty of meat to work with yet here to get this turned. Now I'll do the other 3 pieces to complete this particular pen set. The next step is to glue these brass tubes into these blanks. I use this tube insertion tool, some medium CA glue. Put the tube on the insertion tool here, check to make sure that I've got good fit. And I'd like to put on 2 strips of glue here. I'll put on 1 strip, rotate it 180, and put on another strip. That way it gives me some pretty good coverage. Yeah, I probably get so much on here I drip a bit, but that's okay. I put this on, twirl it in and out. Then I use some paper towel, to make sure I get it pushed in there well and don't get the glue all over my fingers. I'll do the rest of the 3 tubes just like that. My next step is to trim the ends of these blanks with the brass tubes so they're all squared up together. So I put in my 8mm barrel trimmer here and then got my jig lined up in here, got it all clamped in so it's good and straight. Then I'll just turn this on, trim these ends until I see a little bit of the brass tube, then I know that it's trimmed up. Then I'll flip it over and do the other end and do the same for the other 3 pieces. Now this I go at slowly because if you go too fast, since I have these carbide blades on this, you don't want to go too fast or too hard because you can tear out your piece with it. So you've got to go slow and easy. See that brass tube there? I'll do the other end. Make sure I'm lined up. It's good. This end took a little longer to get to because the tube was not as close to this end as it was the other. But down to the brass, and that's what I need. I'll go on and do the other 3. Okay, coming over to the lathe here, I've got a 7mm pen mandrel mounted into the headstock. And I'll use these 3-part bushings that go on here to adapt the various pen tube sizes onto this mandrel. These are going to adapt to the 8mm tubes. The first piece goes on the front. And the workpiece goes on, and I try to be careful to keep the marks lined up that I made. Then you've got the center bushing part, slides on there. Then the other piece of the workpiece goes on that. Then finally the end piece there. I want to make sure I've got these marks lined up. I've got the marks there that I marked before to keep my wood grains kind of in alignment there. I bring up my work rest, or what they call a banjo. Then I bring up the tailstock, and this has the mandrel saver on it because the mandrel goes into it. You get it up snug, tighten down the tailstock, loosen up this, then you can tighten the quill on the tailstock and tighten this back down again, and just finger tight. You don't have to get this very tight. So, and that'll hold it securely, and we can start working on it. I'll set my workpiece so that it aligns with the edges here. So it runs pretty well. I'll get this turning at about 3,500 RPM for shaping this. I mount it up so I can start trimming this with the lathe. Basically, I'm going to do a basic round shape as I do on slimline pens. I don't get into any fancy body shapes with these, and I'll get them maybe a slight curve in the middle to give it a little bit of a body. Okay, I've got my lathe chisel set up pretty good, where that engages with the square end of this, so it should be about the middle of the body once it's round. Got my face shield on. Okay, so I've got this down to shape, and that's looking pretty good. Pretty good looking piece of Coco Bolo. Now what I'll do is start sanding this. I'm going to go from a 150 grit up to 600 grit. Then I'll use some 4-knot steel wool on it too. And then I'll start finishing. Now for sanding this, I'm going to slow down to about 2,000 RPM. Okay, that's looking pretty good. You can see you've got some, I don't know, circular sanding marks on there. To try and get those off, I like to sand the crossways here as I rotate this. Here's a little bit of a cotton cloth, old t-shirt, wipe some of the dust off here. Go over it a little bit with this 4-knot steel wool. T-shirt again. Got a good looking piece here. Next step is I'm going to put on the finish, and what I use is this Aussie oil, and it gives a very good hard shellac and high gloss friction polish, and it has a lot of durability. So what I do is I put a couple drops on here for doing each body half. Turn this down to very low. And smear it on evenly. Then what I'm going to do is crank up the speed to about 3,000. Press this on here, and the friction heat will make this cure and set very hard. I'll run my timer for 1 minute, and that usually is plenty enough to get this done. You can feel the heat through my finger, but it doesn't get hot enough that it would burn you. Okay, so that's really shining up pretty good there, and as I put on about a total of 4 or 5 coats, this thing is going to really shine. Now that I have the finish all finished, I'm ready to take this apart off the lathe. So I'll take this open. This is where it's really handy to have some small parts boxes. I think these Klondike boxes work pretty good for this. Because what I want to do is to keep these pieces in the same orientation here as I'm working through things, so I keep these aligned correctly, so I can line up my wood grain patterns. Take off the bushings, put a piece here. And usually my headstock end is what I consider to be my business end of the pen, so that's where the writing end of the pen would be at. So I'll keep these in the box in this orientation, so when I do my assembly, I've got it correct. Okay, I've got these parts laid out here for assembly according to the directions and how they're supposed to lay out and go together in the order of assembly. Then more specific instructions are on the back side here, the instructions to help you guide you along as to which parts go together first. Okay, to start the assembly here, I'm going to assemble these parts based on whether or not I want it against this soft plastic part or this hard metal part, because sometimes the hard metal part can do some damage to softer parts. Also, this has got kind of a concave point inside here, so you want to be careful on what you're pressing into there so you don't get stuck in there. So, the first thing to assemble here is to put the pen coupler, which is this piece here, and actually we're going to want this so that the coupler, this part presses in, this part is threaded, which this end cap will screw onto that thread. So we're going to press this into this lower body part here. So I'll take that, get that lined up on there. Now this I'm probably going to put against a softer part there to protect those threads and bring it up against this metal part. And then I will try and carefully get this lined up so it goes in straight. Got that pushed together. Okay, next is this center band part, and what we want to do is press the shorter end. This one's longer, this one's shorter. I'm going to press this one into this part. Now again, because of these protected threads here, I'm going to put the threads into the soft part. Get this lined up. Get that on there. Try and make sure I'm getting centered and lined up. Okay. These instructions are a little confusing to follow, with this upper body part especially here. What we're going to do is take these two pieces and slide them together, like this. and that's going to go inside of the tube here. Then we'll put this spring inside of here. Get your pocket clip on here and try and line that up with the area where it's not going to be blocking any of the best grain areas, like that. Get that in there, this spring in there. Then we'll press this together. Like that. Then, next step should be this part to go on there, top button. Okay, so it's just kind of a matter of getting this one plastic part pushed in there all the way. Yeah, see if I can push that out again to show you. This plastic part here, that's the spring. Get this pushed in all the way. You might have to push it in there to get it all the way in. You can feel its seat. Then put the spring in, and then this cap screws in onto a thread on that plastic part. And once you got it on there, then you can, check the operation of that, and that seems to work pretty good. Now, what I need to do is press these together to get this completed. Line up my wood grains. I'm going to take this off because I don't want to be pressing on this part. It's a little bit too delicate. So, my threaded end here again for the cap. I'm going to put it into the softer plastic part. Get that lined up. And push these two centers together. Just like that. Now, you can put this in there. The spring, got to take a little bit of this plastic protector off the tip of the pen, put the spring in, and screw the cap on, like that. Put the click cap on, that's snug. So now, got a working clip pen. That'll look great. The pencil assembly is going to be about the same. Okay, now for doing the pencil part, I've got these parts laid out according to the diagram for the pencil, and this is the order in which we'll do the assembly. First part is to push this pen assembly into this lower body, and what I'll do is use the larger end or the fatter end of this to press into the body. I'm going to put this brass end here into the softer end. Get that fairly lined up, and then get that pressed in. Okay, then I'm going to press the center band into the opposite end of the lower body. Next, I will press this upper end onto the center band. And try to keep this straight because this is kind of a long deal here. Trying to get it straight and push straight. Okay. Next, going to take this plunger guide and slide it into this clip as such, and push that together. Try to line this clip up with the least interesting part of the wood grain, which is kind of hard to find on this one. It's all pretty interesting. So push the clip on in the end. Now put the pencil assembly in here through the top of this so that this thread is showing here. Then I'll screw this tip on tightly. Then press this plunger tip on, and the pencil is ready to use. Just click it a few times to advance the lead, and got a nice pencil. Okay, as I showed you earlier, I got this gift box from PSI. It's very nice. It's only $6.50 and makes it a lot easier than for me to make these. So this seemed to make a lot more sense than trying to figure out how to do that. And that looks like a great gift set. For putting in refills and pencil leads, I'll show you how to do that. The ink refill, take the ink pen, unscrew this tip, that comes out, tip off, you have a spring, and then your refill. So you take that out. And to put the new refill in, you just insert it back in there again, put the spring on, make sure you don't lose that spring, but it's a common spring you can get for most pens. Screw the tip back on, click it, you're back in business for writing. Now for the pencil, it's very simple. Extending the lead is, pressing the end button here, and the lead comes out. And to refill leads, put leads in, just like a lot of these mechanical pencils. You pull the plunger cap off, pull the eraser out, and then in this tube here, you would put in your refill leads, just like mechanical pencils are. Put the eraser back in, put the push cap back on, you're ready to go again, and ready to write with the pencil. Well, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it and you got the inspiration to make something on your own. If you did, please give me a like and share it with your family, friends, colleagues, and fellow craftspersons. Also, please subscribe to see what I may come up with next. As I say, if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you crafty. Thank you.